So hello there people, welcome back. I'm Raymond Brugman and today we'll create some game assets for use in games. And today we'll be creating a lantern and just model that, unwrap it and texture it and set it up for basic export to Unity. I want to start out with changing my scale to meters just for my own sake, so I have a basic sense of scale. And then we'll just start out with a box. The always omnipresent box, I guess. So let's just create it in the center. Let's say 30 centimeters across and about a platform of, well, something like that. Alright, and then we'll just start blocking in some shapes by extruding the top. And of course you can go as fancy as you really want. Although you have to keep in mind that it's for use in games, of course. Well, the techniques also apply for high poly modeling. Something like that. And then we'll create a little top in it on which it hangs. And I want to go for this kind of old medieval looking style. So it's rather curvy and stuff. Something like that is cool. Alright, so now let's just save the scene for a moment. And I'll just put it on the desktop and call it candle holder. Or lantern. And then we'll select all these faces on the sides and turn off the keep faces together. And let's just extrude those faces. And when we resize it, you'll see a nice window pop out. Now the top is quite off, since it scales in a horizontal way a bit more, so we're better off just resizing each level on its own. Perhaps you want to keep the middle as it is. Like that. Now we can increase the size as well. The height, I mean. No, that's not quite the way I want it. No, that's just retarded. Let's just do it like this. And then we'll go into vertex mode and edit those. Like so. And let's do the same thing at the bottom. like so, and now you have 4 equal edges. Well, at least you know how to fix them. But I'm not yet quite satisfied with it. And of course it's always better to fix things in an early stage as when you were almost finished. So we want to make that the same size as the button. So we'll look for the sides so that they correspond. Something like that is nice. And then we'll go into vertex mode again and readjust it. Like so. And like so. And of course the sides scale down a little as well. So actually you should go even a little smaller than that. But it'll be alright for now. Alright, and then let's just do the middles. And as you can see, if you watch my other tutorial about my factory building, it's basically the same technique. For creating windows and stuff, so if you think this is handy, then you might want to check that out as well. I'm talking about creating a Maya structure in there, basically from scratch, and it's really well big. And that's always a difficult task. I'll just put a link in the screen so you can go to the Maya factory tutorial. For now, let's just continue with our lantern. As you can see, I've selected all the faces in the middle of the window, and I'll just want to delete those. Like so, and now we have a basic shape. No, I don't want to delete those actually. Let's just extract those, so we can later use them as windows or as glass. I might not even want to combine them at this point. I do want to hide them. So alright. And let's just extrude this basic poly mesh. And of course, as you can see, all the edges are still separated. And that's due to the fact we have keep faces together turned off. So let's turn that on again and extrude it again. And as you can see, a nice polygon mesh is coming up now with some real depth to it. And you might want to pay attention to that area over here so it doesn't overlap like that. But that's just also a basic stuff like edge loop and stuff. If you have created bad edge loops, then it will definitely extrude badly, so you might want to avoid bad edge loops. And of course triangles is alright when you're working for games, since most of the game engines will convert it in triangles anyway. So don't worry about triangles. In fact, I'll show you a cool trick to refine this top a little more by beveling it a little like so. Perhaps even a little less, like so. So this is basically a really nice shape going on. Perhaps I might want to shrink this a little or move it there. Again, you can go as nuts as you want. For now I'll leave it in place because of the windows. And then let's create a basic candle in the middle. Like so. And perhaps detail the inside a bit more by extruding this face. Alright, that's the bottom face. Right? Yeah, that's the bottom face. Let's just put that a little down. Perhaps create a pedestal kind of thingy, like so. And again, you might want to bevel these edges as well. So it gets a nice circular look. Alright, let's hit the bevel. Yeah, that's pretty cool. Perhaps extrude that, like so. And for the candle, let's use the polygon sculpt tool. And using the B button and dragging your mouse changes the size of it. And double clicking the polygon sculpt tool brings up the tool settings. And let's just push in the polygons for now. You might want to change the max displacement. Save the scene. One more time. That's always a good thing to do. Like that. Now we have created a cool little candle. Can of course also extrude a flaming bit, but we can of course also create that with a cylinder. But now we'll continue to the next part and setting up some basic lights so we get a feel for our textures. At least that's how I like to do it. I always like to light my scene first and then texture it, just so I get a basic feel of the light and so on. And not creating a whole elaborate light system here, just creating a basic 3-point light setup. So you have some nice ambience and some nice highlights. Like that, and that's pretty nice looking. So that's the basic render now for now. I'll save it again and make a polytorus for the chains to hang the light off. Like that. Well, that's pretty stupid. Like that. I'm sorry. So let's just create 6 sections by 6 sections. And then we'll go into vertex mode and move the top up a little. Alright, you might want to increase the section radius of it. And then head into vertex mode and move this up and duplicate it using the Shift D, and then rotate that 90 degrees. Like so, and when we hit the Shift duplicate again, we'll see it nicely duplicate the copying motion or action. Alright, so now we'll want to head into the texturing. I'll just create a basic automatic mapping. And as you can see, this is our texture map at the moment. These are the outsides and no, these are the insides and these are the outsides, I reckon, cause on the outsides there's this nifty little beveled edge, and these are the outsides as well. Am I saying that correct? No, these are the outsides as well. You can see that at the bottom poly. Of course, you can also just select the faces and see which UVs light up, which is a little more work of course, but for now I'll just know that these are the sides. And we'll want to separate those. And I'm just basically selecting the other two sides at the moment. As you can see, they'll line up nicely. And I'm guessing this is the back side, this is the front side, and this is the left side, and this is the right side. So we might want to check if they're aligned properly, but it doesn't really matter, really, since I don't want to be going into high-tech and texture creation in Photoshop. I just want to lay out the basic UVs and paint something on there. So I'll just try to find some space, and you can of course let it overlap, but it's not recommendable, because Unity will later then have problems mapping the light maps onto it. So we might want to scale this down a little. These are the outsides, these are the insides. Am I saying that correctly? No, I don't know if I'm saying that correctly. So let's just check it out to be sure. These could be the outsides as well. Yes, and they are, as you can see, and then are these the inside. Yeah. So okay, let's move these to over here. Resize them so they fit the other ones nicely. Doesn't have to be perfect, but it's nice if all the textures have the same size. Well, it should be alright. Let's just select all these and check if it's all the outsides. And yes, as you can see, we have selected all the outsides, so that's a good thing. And these little thingies are basically all the window panes and stuff. And this is the bottom and this is the top. So we'll want to separate those as well. Forgot to UV edges, which it won't select now. Ah, there we go. And let's just put these here. Okay, so outsides and insides. Let's just scale the outsides up a little, or place them at the bottom, so we have a bit more space, since the outsides are more visible to the viewer than the insides are. Like that, that's a nicely laid out UV map, I guess. You could clean this up a little, but it'll be alright. And what we want to do now is take a UV snapshot, and I'll just put one on my desktop. It's not my normal working folder, but UV out from the tool settings. Alright, and let's just create a 4069 pixels wide, so it's nicely high res. And let's just create a JPEG from that. And of course you have to select everything you want to export, and then just hit the OK button. I'm doing it on my other screen now. Like that, and then we'll have a UV out. And as you can see, I've already downloaded 3 metal textures from cgtextures.com. It's free to sign up. They have great textures. You can download about 15 MB a day. So you might want to check that out. And for now, I'll just open this in Photoshop, my UV out. And I might want to save my Maya scene, cause otherwise, if Maya crashes, all my unwrapping would be for nothing. And believe me, I've already experienced it, cause I was creating the same lecture a couple hours ago, and well, at the ending of the lecture, Maya just simply crashed, leaving me empty-handed, and I could redo everything. So be sure to save often. And there we go, there's the texture map nicely loaded, well the UV map. And I might want to drag that to the other side of the screen so I can drag them in easily. And I want to be starting out with this as a base texture. Let's just scale it up a little. And just copy everything and copy that. And perhaps one more like this. Let's apply the transformation. And apply the transformation again. Okay, so now at this point I'm going to grab my Wacom, which will allow me to sculpt the textures a little easier and a bit more natural. So I might want to flatten all these layers, otherwise it's going to be a hard time blending it together. And I'm using just a custom brush I built for the other tutorial this afternoon, but you can easily do it yourself under the brush options and play around with the dynamics like scattering and opacity and stuff like that, so it also reacts on your tablet. And you just want to get rid of all these hard edges and stuff, but you don't want to overdo it. That's nice. Okay, now let's just get this one in. And let's just duplicate that layer. And let's duplicate it again. And again. Well, let's just rotate it entirely like this. Alright, that should do for now. Let's just copy it one more time. And same goes for the one in the bottom. And then again, you could play around with it a little. Make this mirror this one horizontally. Like that. So you get a different feel. And I'm just going to merge it all. Like that, and I will continue polishing away the seams. Try to create our own, well, give it our own feel to it, and this brush helps with it greatly. So it's really worthwhile spending some time setting up your brushes. And of course you can play around with the opacity a little. Although I find that often it only ends up with blurrier pictures. So you might want to take it easy on that. And I just created this brush like this worn out metal rusty kind of thing. And as you can see, the texture is hardly noticeable at this point, which I like. After all, it's just a texture. So it doesn't have to look like a photograph. And we'll get to that point, of course. Okay, that looks like some worn metal or stone or concrete. At least something dirty. Oh, we already had that. So let's just remove that and import the other map I had from CG Textures. And let's just rasterize it on forehand and then just duplicate it. This will be our top layer. And let's just duplicate it one more time. And holding the shift button you can of course snap to increments of 40 degrees, of 45 degrees and 90 degrees. Perhaps even in between, I don't know. So just merging this. And let's just move this, get rid of the seam here. And as you can see, this texture hardly requires any painting at all to get rid of the seams. It just blends in so nice. Especially with this brush, and it isn't a high-tech brush or anything, it's just really simple, just some scattering and you can also just simply use the pattern option in Photoshop, but this gives me a little more control. Alright, so now we have three texture layers and we have our UV out. So let's just duplicate the UV out and put it on top of all of our layers and just invert it. Oh, not posterize it. Let's just invert it so it's black and white, and then we'll create a nice blending mode for it. Like so. And we'll now see the UV map nicely being laid out over the texture. And you want to add a mask to this one and that one. And we'll just start off from the bottom texture and painting our way up in layers. So I've basically just paint bucketed two mask layers, and we'll start off from the first layer, or at least the second layer. First layer is already turned on, which is this one. And we'll paint in the mask map for the second layer. So we'll want to use our white brush and just go along the edges And already I can see I might want to turn my scatter a bit up, and perhaps my spacing also, because I'm working really small, or at least with a really small brush, I should say. And as you can see, I'm just giving these edges some wear and tear, so it looked like they have been used for decades and decades. Well, that's basically one side done. And you don't want to go overboard with this. Just some nice subtle textures will do. And we've of course also have the second layer, or the third layer, we can still paint on, so go crazy, but don't go too crazy. It's always good to go crazy, of course. And you don't want to add it at all the edges. Perhaps just at certain points, like so. But I find it add a nice vibe to it. And I think you can see why we laid out the UV textures as well now. You could have settled with the automatic mapping, but would have created a really uniform texture. And since we're creating low poly art, we might want to put in a little more detail. Perhaps some more on these sides. And I know these are the outsides of the lamp, so why not exaggerate these edges as well? Not too much, of course, because that will look really dull. Just some basic corners, which I've gotten a few slams over the years. And my scatter is a little high. For me to work really accurate, but and the cool thing with working with masks is you retain all your data from the texture layer, so we won't waste that. Like when you would just normally use an eraser, your map will basically be destroyed bit by bit. And if you make a mistake, well, good luck retrieving it, but this way you can just add another paint bucket, just black it out or white it out, and then it's back. No harm done. That works out nicely as well. Creating some scratches with this. And I might want to do the insides quickly as well. Doesn't have to be that accurate, but these sides won't be shadowed because they're on the inside. And it looks like I'm going way overboard, but you can see a lot of texture is actually inside the polygon, so it won't be mapped onto the model. It's basically just coloring like you did when you were a kid. Only now with high-tech Photoshop tools and stuff like that, which is always cool to see technology advance. And of course with the mask map you can play with the opacity and stuff. You won't get smudged textures, it'll only add opacity to the mask. And well, this outside can be done as well. Perhaps these a little. And this is the inside pedestal for the candle. Of course, if you really want to do things properly, you align these with those and create basically just another edge loop in there. But that's something which I found a bit overkill for this tutorial. Then we wouldn't be ready tomorrow morning. So alright, let's go to the second layer. And we'll just do the same. Add some wear and tear to it. I might want to change my brush size and just add some global color to it. And as you can see, the opacity works quite good with the masks. And what we can do now is perhaps use a different blending mode to enhance it a bit more. Change the brush size back so it's a little more detailed. Perhaps some more scattering. Change the opacity back. So alright, let's just well, I think this is a bit too much. Let's just change that back to normal. Or perhaps multiply. Okay, so at this point I want to flatten my image. Of course not when it's really a project when you're working on, then you might want to save it as a Photoshop file as well, but I'll now just add a smart sharpen filter with a radius of 2. Well, perhaps that's a bit too much. Let's say 1.5. No, let's just say 2. Alright, and I'll save it. As my color map.jpg. Yes. And we'll create a bump map now by desaturating the texture and setting the levels nicely, so we'll have some nice depth going on. You really want to get the utmost texture out of it. You could also invert it. Depending on what you want to do with it, but for now we'll leave it as it is. And we'll name that bump map. Tick, 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 tick. And just minimize Photoshop. So let's just head into Maya again. Put aside my Wacom and go to the hypershade. And I want to create a new blend material. And let's just open it. And I'll navigate to the color map we created. Like so, and then we'll do the same for the bump map. Alright, so we have both textures added to the material. And now we'll want to add the material to our object by right clicking and assign material to selection. And it's still untextured because it has to load the texture map. And like so, there's our basic candle or lantern, and it has some nice textures to it. So that's pretty cool. Last thing I want to do is add the color map to the specular color map. So we want to graph out that network and say color map go to specular color by dragging with your middle mouse button. Okay, so let's just give it a whirl in the renderer, and let's just assign the material to the chains as well. Like that, and just scale down the chains in the UV texture editor, otherwise they'll have way too much chain going on, or texture I should say. And you could of course relocate every single chain onto its own UV space, so you have a bit more randomness going on, but for now it's fine. At this point I want to save my scene, because that's where it last crashed. So it's all ready. And we might want to add some ray trace shadows to the candle. So let's just give it a whirl. So there we have it. I'll want to create a bit more light on the outside of the scene. That's basically our ambient light. We don't want to increase that. Just put the ambient light back where it came from. Perhaps give this ray trace shadows as well. And as you can see, the bump map is way over exaggerated at this point. But what you can also do is play around with the filtering a bit. Right, it's over here. It's supposed to be, well, it's at quadratic, but I usually just put it off, so you get a nice crisp texture. Well, you can play around with it and see what it all does. And then let's change the bump a bit, like so. So there you have it. I'll render it one more time in the highest quality possible. Well, highest. In a decent quality. Production, and let's just give it some final gathering. Change the resolution to, let's say, 600 times 900. And put on a resolution gate. And it's now basically computing the final gather. Pause. Which is a bit unnecessary. But it always gives a nice edge to it. And it's now probably rendering at the bottom. So that's why we aren't seeing anything. I'm sorry, I don't know how to pause the video capture. I'm going to figure that out for the next tutorial. But till then, please bear with me. There we go, it's going already at the top. So I'm just going to have a little smoke. And a little drink. Because drinking is good for you. And it's taking quite long, I'd have to admit. The normal production settings would be alright as well. If we would only have changed the resolution of it. It is seriously taking its time. That's probably because of the texture map, I reckon. Jesus. Well, I'm just going to cancel this one and create another one with the production, with the preview settings. Well, just change this back to 0. That should be fine. Still taking a while. Well, in the meanwhile, I'll just enjoy my cigarette. And you can of course also skip towards the end, cause this will be the conclusion of my tutorial, when the render is complete of course. And really the render is taking such a long time just because the texture size is so big. If you'd created a 1000 by 1000 texture, then it would have been done in 10 seconds, I guess. Well, it's almost done. So well, there you have it. This is the final result, and of course you can play around with the specular and blend properties of the object, but I find it to be a bit unnecessary since I'll be taking it into my game engine later and just tweak it from there. So I hope you had a learnful lesson, and till next time, bye bye.